Hello and welcome. You're watching The Devi Show. Thanks for joining us for another episode where you call the shots. Your stories, your issues, our goal, land answers and introduce you to brilliant minds adding their unique stamp to the world. Here's what made the lineup. Property at rock bottom prices in the UK. Why so many South African investors, even with title deeds in their hands, are boiling mad.
The one has been blocked because there's a major sewage works there. A Burnham on sea that lands underwater for 6 months a year.
From construction to delicate ceramics, Gwen Corsi and her unusual creations.
We saw this clay, that it was one of the baby gifts. We played around with it. Beautiful feet came out of it, beautiful flowers came out of it. My daughter and my daughter-in-law decided to paint it. It came out beautiful and it was peaceful.
The greater the spread, the less the risk. That's what financial advisors tell us. And what better than a freehold plot in England, bought for a song at an amount that's not even close to the average price of property there. The Devi Show dug deep and what we discovered was far from pretty. England's property market, featuring the capital London as its jewel in the crown, comes with a bulletproof reputation as a safe investment haven. Surviving recessions, pandemics and Brexit's self-imposed economic sanctions. For at least 14 years, SJ Capital claims to have cracked the code for South Africa's middle classes to profit from England's property market. Marco Ngwane and her husband Becky were planning to get married and were looking for a secure investment to cushion the extra costs that comes with children, when they came across SJ Capital at a Durban mall.
We were at the mall, at Gateway Mall, back in 2008. That's before my husband and I got married. The plan that they told us was that they're going to develop the plot, so the developer will actually buy the plots and then develop it into townhouses, houses, and there was going to be schools there.
A glance online and the stats look good. There's been a 12.8% annual rise. The average UK property price in 2022 is 5.7 million rands and near double in London at 10.6 million rands. The Ngwanes believed the investment was as close as it gets to a sure thing, so they bought in.
We paid 500,000, expecting to get something about 3 million rand in 5 years. So for us, it was a good buy.
Baragwanath ICU specialist Dean Govender had no ambitions of owning property in England when, as a Durban GP, he strolled past an SJ Capital pop-up stand at a mall in 2013.
They told me other doctors had bought, attorneys had bought, accountants had bought from them.
With starting prices for freehold plots from a few 100,000 rands, plus an investment carrot of a possible 400% return within a few years, it was the kind of investment that could lead to regret later in life if the opportunity wasn't seized.
You were entirely convinced that you were buying an investment with a good profitable margin and a good investment.
Within months, he had a title deed to 250 square meters of England for a steal at just 400,000 rands, expecting to more than double his money after 3 to 5 years.
It was kind of like my sort of way of entering without a financial burden.
That sounds too good to be true, says financial journalist Maya Fisher-French.
You'd have to have a couple of million to start. So suddenly here you're being offered something at an affordable price, 300,000-400,000 rand, and you've got a little piece of land in the UK. That sounds quite, wow, I can do this.
Both Marco and Dean had invested in what's known as a legal land banking venture. The practice sees a company buy chunks of land without planning permission that is carved up and sold to small-time property investors, gambling on its rezoning for residential or commercial rights for a payday.
They sell them to investors, and the investors have title deed over that square meterage on that development. This is the selling point. There is going to be such a chronic shortage of housing in the UK in the future that eventually the councils will be forced to turn green belts into residential or developed land.
Rezoning wrestles strict greenbelt laws, policing urban sprawl and creep, and other development restraints, making it anything but a sure thing.
Imagine somebody came and said, listen, we've got rights over Table Mountain, and one day in the future we'll be able to put townhouses up there. You're going to say, well, it doesn't sound right. We don't have that feel for the UK because we're not familiar with it.
Choosing to hide their identity, South African pensioners John and his wife's 2015 SJ Capital investment was to swell savings for the fast approaching golden years.
We bought 3 properties in the range of 18 to 22,000 pounds each. Our finances were carefully planned that we had enough money to live in the UK for 2 to 3 years.
But as the years ticked by, Marco starts doubting if the investment will ever live up to expectation.
I started getting concerned, of course, when my son started school.
Enquiries about their plot's progress towards rezoning were allegedly met with excuses and deflection by SJ Capital.
My husband is a very optimistic person. At some point, he just lost it and asked them, but why aren't you guys communicating with us? Because we are the investors.
And the hole in Dean's finances left him struggling to pay bills for one of his children living with a medical condition.
There's so much I could have, done with that money from then till now. Could have paid off my bond. Yeah, I didn't have to work as hard to sort out my daughter's medical expenses.
Marco and her husband reached breaking point and wanted out of the deal, enduring an increasingly fraught relationship with the company. Why did they give you a refund? Others have demanded refunds, they never gave them.
I think because I had a big mouth.
And what were the terms and conditions?
It was never to come out with it, like to come out openly, like I'm doing now. I'm going against their will.
How much did they refund you?
500,000.
So you've actually lost though, because if you took the 500,000 and invested it, you would have had a lot more.
Exactly.
Somewhere in the region of nearly R1 million from a standard savings account. But Marco remains entangled with SJ Capital after her father invested R250,000 on her advice.
This situation has ruined my family relationship, more so when they're telling us, please don't tell your dad that we have paid back the money.
John and his wife expected a £110,600 payout after 3 to 5 years, more than double the investment. It failed to materialize, and they're now working menial jobs in the UK to survive despite their advancing age.
My wife is a carer at the moment, and doing a 10-hour shift a day, and I pack shelves in the supermarket.
John's own inquiries to local UK councils revealed what he deems as misrepresenting progress towards rezoning the land he bought.
I've contacted all 3 district councils. They had no knowledge of any proposed development. All 3 are computerized and said if there had been a request, it would be noted.
The SJ Capital planning updates John received in April this year paints a different landscape. Oakington's initial consultations and first proposals occurred at the end of last year, and the next steps are planned for the end of this year. At Linford, there were submissions, and at Burnham-on-Sea, it's reported the necessary representations for coastal sea defences are being implemented, which all sounds fabulous on paper.
At Burnham-on-Sea, that land's underwater for 6 months a year. It's 2 meters below sea level, so it is useless land. One has been blocked because the river runs through the land and there's a major sewerage works there. The Linford one is possibly suitable for development. If I work out how many plots have been sold that I know of, it's close to 5,000 people have been scammed.
What? After the break, we go undercover to witness SJ Capital casting their marketing spell. And then we meet up with the same salesman expecting to close a deal. You know there must be a problem if I'm here.
Okay.
Welcome back. You're watching The Devi Show. Before the break, part one of our story on the SJ Capital Group, which for many years has been marketing property investments in the UK at bargain basement prices. In part two, we go undercover to hear the sales pitch for ourselves. SJ Capital seem to try and cover themselves in the fine print on their website, which cautions any investment is speculative. There are significant risks, and they place the onus on their clients with this statement: rely solely on your own review and examination of the facts. So we deployed our undercover team to experience SJ Capital's sales pitch at their Houghton Estate offices, where they were met by offshore sales consultant Danny McLaren.
Good to meet you, Danny.
Very lovely to meet you, Devi.
Danny gave the lay of the land.
The model was created specifically for South Africans because Paul Charney, our CEO in the UK, lives there, but he's born South African.
Charney is also managing director of UK-based Landhold Capital, described as a strategic promotion and land investment company. Quinton Haddon is cited as SJ Capital's sales director since 2009 on its website.
We buy agricultural land, we rezone it to residential, and then we sell to the developer.
SJ Capital is currently marketing 15 sites, with all but 2 sold out.
Because we do our due diligence before we buy a site, okay? So the land will always be rezoned. Your real risk is time. That's why we say 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years. UK law allows us to subdivide while it's still being rezoned.
Subdividing the land before rezoning has zero influence on securing development rights. But for Danny, who claims to have a history as a financial advisor, the investment trumps any dividends from stock markets.
I was a financial advisor for 13 years. Okay, so markets, understand markets, we get it. If you look at equity in good market conditions, you're looking at 10 to 12 years to double your money. So even if this takes 7 years, okay, you still 4 to 5 times make more than what you could have. Okay. And it's a physical asset because you get a title deed.
Danny boasted of the phenomenal returns and gave our operatives assurances for any eventuality.
The exchange rate is 20.43 today, the selling rate. So we have it capped at 17.50 and at 10 on Peacehaven, you're out at £39,000 in 3 to 4 years. And we pay you back in pounds sterling in any account in your name anywhere in the world.
So we left and booked a follow-up meeting. Danny was expecting to close a deal with the additional lure of meeting other family tempted by the product. He arrived bang on time, and then we pounced.
How's it, Danny?
Hi, good and you?
Devi.
Hi,
Devi
Devi.
Show, how are you?
Good and you?
So, you know there must be a problem if I'm here.
Okay.
So, just very quickly, right, we've received a lot of complaints about SJ Capital.
Okay.
So basically, the allegation is that you guys are marketing this land bank investment scheme, but
Nothing ever actually works out.
That's
So-
not true.
So are you telling me you don't have clients from like 2008, 2009
Yes, that's true. That's true.
who bought property and nothing's actually happened?
Yes, that's true.
That's true.
No, the risk in our investment
No.
is
So-
time.
So hold on.
Yes,
So don't give me the spiel like you were talking bull
Okay,
dust with these
I'm
people
listening.
here, right? So I'm saying to you, people invested for many, many years and there's nothing to show for it, right?
Okay.
Is that true or not?
No, that's not true.
So what's there to show for it? Where's the
They've got a
developments?
title deed in their name to say
The
that
title
that land.
deed means nothing, and when you sold them the product,
Yes.
your company sold them the product. You
Yes.
always say, like you said to these people, it'll take a few years, but it'll get going 3 to
Yes.
5 years. Now, in these
Normally,
cases,
yeah. Okay.
so 2008 is not normal, right?
Okay, but like I said to them as well, before 2015, this took 12 to 15 years, and you can go and check.
As if on cue, Danny shifts the blame for any misunderstanding on former company salesmen. But that's not how it was marketed.
I understand that, and that is unfortunately a consultant that tells a client not the truth.
So, who do we believe?
We have regulators aren't regulating, and then so now if you see this investment and you want to check it out, you want to know more, who do you even go to? You have to do all the investigation yourself and make those decisions yourself, and then you think you're missing out on a golden opportunity because that's how it would be marketed to you.
That prompted Danny to be on his way. So we shifted focus to the numbers of SJ Capital clients.
So,
Debbie, can we, sorry.
Yeah.
I feel very, this was a setup and I get that, but I mean, like I said to you, I can't...
How many investors are there in South Africa?
There's a lot.
Like
I don't
how
have an
many?
exactly
Like
exact
thousands
number.
or...
Quentin will be able to answer all those questions in detail.
And with that, he left. UK-based Paul Charney from Landhold Capital declined on the basis that he has no involvement with SJ Capital. Durban-based South African CEO Quinton Haddon also declined an on-camera interview, but in email correspondence said it is false and baseless to claim Charney is company CEO, and that SJ Capital's land product requires no financial regulation, nor had any client been refunded or gagged. Haddon said rezoning is never guaranteed in the UK, and this is made clear before any purchase. As for allegations of poor after-sales service, it was spurious.
I would say it is a highly, highly risky investment that should not be offered to retail investors. And the risks of that were never made clear to the investors at all.
John and Marco both filed complaints with the NCC. The regulator says the complaints are beyond its 3-year prescribed period and advised they approach the Estate Agency Affairs Board. Although Dr. Govender has little faith he'll ever see his money again, he hopes by speaking out he'll alert the public to the possible pitfalls.
10, 12 years later, they still exist and they're still doing the same thing that they did 12 years ago to me. I mean, there's going to be a pensioner again who's doing the normal shopping and they're going to fall for it.
When COVID and lockdown closed the doors to so many businesses, building contractor Gwen Nkosi discovered pottery for the first time. 2 years later, her quirky ceramics are a tribute to African heritage and grace many fine homes around the world. The story behind Nkosi Ceramics is one of pure entrepreneurial spirit. The gallery and studio was created by Gwen Nkosi, a woman who has as much burning ambition as the kiln in which she fires up her designs.
I felt a bit like Alice in Wonderland when I walked in here. Just explain to me, what am I seeing here?
You see handmade ceramics, clay. Like, you know, when you grew up in the rivers, we used to make horses, cows and whatever.
Gwen runs a construction company, but during lockdown in 2020, to keep her grandchildren entertained, she started working with clay and making pottery. It was a natural fit, and she realized she could turn it into a business.
When was this idea of Nkosi Ceramics born?
Nkosi Ceramics was created during COVID, when we hit level 5. I had my daughter at home, I had my husband, I had my grandchildren. We're all under one roof.
Yeah.
So we ran short of games. We decided to clean up, and we saw this clay, that it was one of the baby gifts. We played around with it. Beautiful feet came out of it, beautiful flowers came out of it. My daughter and my daughter-in-law decided to paint it. It came out beautiful, and it was peaceful.
In true Gwen style, she saw an opportunity. She sourced a clay supplier, and then she hit social media for advice on how to bake ceramics. When potters who had lost their jobs during COVID responded, she invited them to live on her plot near Fourways.
We ended up being 22 in the house. We started playing with the clay with them. They were teaching us. So it was fun during COVID.
Yeah.
We were all under one roof, but I had a bigger family to feed now and no income.
Yes.
Come September, I bought the first kiln. And 21st of September, we had the first product that came out of the kiln.
When you see the unusual designs of her ceramic ranges, you would think Gwen has been an artist for many years. Nope. She studied nursing science, majoring in psychology, and then during her studies, she was nominated to go with the Department of Trade and Industry delegation to Thailand.
You know, in the early 80s, it was fashionable to buy import things, you know, like clothing from Bangkok. I ended up as a student selling clothes. In between that, I ended up, 1994, I opened my first store, which was called Gwen's Boutiques. I had close to 20 shops.
What unfolded next is an extraordinary entrepreneurial journey. Her nursing buddies supported her shops and asked her to design soft cotton uniforms. And then, while delivering the uniforms, another opportunity came knocking.
In delivery, then I saw the appalling status of the hospitals and the nursing homes and the clinics. I came with the ECG machines, you know, machines that I could source from overseas that were different from us. So I came with them, but they did not fit in the room. So I had to extend the room to fit the ECG machine. That's how the construction started.
But she didn't just open a construction business. She learned everything she could about the industry, including the art of truck driving and forklift operation. Her company has built clinics, student accommodation, and there's much more in the pipeline.
So you became a one-stop shop. You were providing the nurses with uniform. You've got a medical background, so therefore you knew the kinds of machines that we needed. And then the rooms were too small. Then you thought, well, I'll just build it.
And not well ventilated, so we had to ventilate them. So that I might as well build them. I went into JV with people. I went in and partnered. I came with a concept where they had to separate the communicable and non-communicable entrances for clinics. Because you go to the clinic having a headache, you come up having TB.
So when the pandemic took over the world and Gwen had opened up her home to those unemployed artists and pottery designers, the first thing the ceramic queen needed was a crown.
You know, when you're Nkosi, it's king. So we decided to crown ourselves.
People were spending time on virtual meetings, and Gwen figured out that they needed to have some dramatic decor in the background. That's when she designed these gigantic vases.
So when you do the Zoom meetings, you see the backgrounds were quite dull. Let's make a vase so that when you go into a Zoom meeting, your houses must look quite appealing. Your background must have the Nkosi ceramic vase, you know? So that's how I came up with vases, you know, because I felt people were spending more time at home, so they might as well beautify their homes.
2 years later, and Gwen still designs most of the handmade range and inspects each item before it leaves the studio floor.
When I listen to your story, the golden thread for me is that you're the kind of person who's never afraid to jump into new things.
It's true. I'm never afraid to jump into new things. I always tell my children, you know, when there's a storm, don't get afraid. Go out and look for a rainbow. In every dark cloud, go out and look for that silver lining.
And that's it from us. Story ideas? Then zap us all the details via devi@etv.co.za or tag us using #Devi on social media. From me and the Devi team, until next time, heads up South Africa. Let's keep our eyes fixed on the horizon. We've got this.